Hello, welcome to the Peaceful Woodturner. I have here a piece of somebody's holiday tree, somebody's Christmas tree. I don't know exactly what kind of evergreen it was. You know, the popular ones are certain kinds of firs and spruces and things like that. So, you know, everybody thinks when it's pine trees, it's something in that family. As you can see, they were very good and cut off the end and drilled a hole so that it could get water up into it. And as you know, if you've ever had a Christmas tree, that doesn't keep them from drying out, and they dry out pretty quick. So what I did last year around Christmas time is I went around after people had gotten rid of their trees, so I guess really the beginning of this year, and I just started collecting up the biggest pieces I could find. And my idea is simply to use old Christmas trees to make new Christmas decorations, things like snowmen and little Christmas trees and even ornaments. I've got another piece of one right here. This was a smaller piece, obviously. I painted the ends just to help them dry out a little more slowly. This has gone from being, you know, kind of a hardy, hefty piece of wood down to being almost light as air. It feels like just a great big marshmallow. And I painted the end on this one, obviously. Also, it looks like it's got a crack, but I think that's just in the bark, just from looking at the ends. I'm going to have to be careful, though, and just double check that. And I'm just going to take this and cut it down into some more manageable sizes. And I'm going to do a little bit of experimenting. I want to try to make a snowman, I want to try to make a Christmas tree, and I want to see what I can do about making a nice ornament out of this. So we'll see how it works out. I'm going to start breaking it down, getting all these pieces off of it, and then we'll get it on the lathe. So I moved to a more stable work surface, i.e. the floor, and got all of these bits and pieces off. So things are going to be a little bit safer now. Next thing to do is to actually cut this into some workable pieces, trim off some of the excess, and then I can be able to start turning it to round and actually working on it. So I cut these down with my Sawzall. It's pretty much the safest tool to use for it. Chainsaw would work well too. All I'm going to do now is just trim off some of these excess little bits, and I'm going to get these on the lathe. I think we're going to have probably an ornament and a snowman and a tree. So I've got that smaller piece mounted up. Just doing it as a spindle turning between centers right now. I've got it in here as tight as I can get it, and I'm just going to start by getting it down to something closer to round, get some of this bark and stuff off. As you can see, it doesn't have a whole lot of projections or anything coming off of it, and I think this bark is probably going to peel relatively quickly. I've tried taking bark off a few different ways. If it's starting to come off on the edges, then sometimes I can just slit it and peel it. This doesn't seem like it's going to quite want to do that, probably because of all these little knots and branches that used to come out of here. So I'm just going to start taking it down with my roughing gouge. I'll probably switch over to the spindle gouge, and I'm going about 900 RPM. Alright, that's down to round. What I'm going to do now is just clean up a bit and reset. I'm going to put this into the chuck, and then I'll be able to turn it into a Christmas tree. All chucked up. One thing I did in Australia is I parted off the end so that I had a nice straight end instead of having the slightly angled piece that was the original base of this. So I cut it off straight, and now I've got it in the chuck. I'm going to be going a lot faster this time, somewhere around 1800 RPM. The thing is, I've never made a Christmas tree before, so I'm trying to kind of figure it out as I go. Down here is going to be my base, and then it's going to get narrower as it comes up, which hopefully I'll get it narrow enough that it'll avoid the hole at the end where they drilled in under the base to let water get into it to begin with. So it's going to be a relatively short tree, probably only come to about here. And I have to figure out how to get my proportions right on it. So I'm going to put in pencil lines to begin with, and I'm going to use the parting tool to kind of start things off so I can have it kind of figured out. I'm probably going to mess it up dramatically, but we'll see what happens. So, like I said, right about here for my base. And then if that's the base and this is the top, I'm only going to have a few cones, I guess, call it. So one right about here, and then one about here, and then one right about there, and then the trunk and a little base. Let's just move that a little bit, get it kind of halfway. I probably should measure it off. I should probably do something like take this distance, divide it into 3, so on. I'm eyeballing it this time, and we'll see how that works out. Oops. Okay, that wasn't the smoothest. Alright. Take the parting tool. I'm just going to come in here a bit, come in here a bit, come in here a lot more. A lot more later on that one though. So one thing I'm understanding right off the bat, I should probably just make this into a cone, top to bottom, and then make my shape. Should have figured that out to begin with. Mostly it's coming along nicely, but I think I'm at that hole that's drilled in here. So I'm gonna part this off and see where I'm actually at with that. Right there. Okay. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to decorate the top of this tree so that it doesn't look like the complete fail that it is. So I'm going to smooth this off, take off that little bit. I'm going to smooth each of these transitions and cut my trunk. My tiniest parting tool. This is smooth. This is still really rough right here. I'm going to take the skew and see if I can smooth that off a little bit. Usually I get a nice finish with that planing cut, but this stuff is just fibrous enough that it really didn't come off quite as smooth as I would like. So I'll try a little bit more, and then I'll switch off to sanding off some of the heavier rough spots, finish this opening a little bit, and figure something out. That's better. Alright, I'm going to slow it down and do some sanding. Okay, I've slowed it down to about 500 RPM, and I'm going to be going with 150 grit to begin with. I think that should take this stuff off nicely without leaving too many marks. Don't forget your dust collection. Well, that smoothed out better than I thought it would. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna clean up this top end a little bit here, and I'm gonna part this off, and I'll experiment with some finishing. Alright, it's all parted off. I like how the grain ended up showing. Let's see if I can get this into focus here a little bit. The grain came out really nice. I'm gonna put a finish on it, and I have this stainless steel ball from another project, but I just kind of thought that looked like a relatively good finish for this. Like I said, this isn't you know, the best version of this. This is just an early one, so it's a good first shot. I'm gonna put a little bit of boiled linseed oil on it, just to bring out the grain a little bit. I'll glue this guy on, and I'll have my first tree.